Alright folks, welcome to my new podcast, Forticap. This is the podcast where I'm going to be recapping NBA games and storylines without having to make a whole video about it. So pretty much, in this first episode, we're going to be hitting the Warriors versus Minnesota game that happened just last night. So, Anthony Edwards didn't play, and pretty much it seemed like it was going to be a game that the Warriors could get because Steph was going to come back. And let's start with the positives because there's going to be a lot of negatives in this one. So obviously, the first positive is Steph coming back. And Steph looked sharp out there. Like first game back after 1 week of not playing basketball. And it looked like he was moving great. Like he looked like he had his legs under him. The explosiveness looks great. The handle looks tight. The shot looks smooth. I thought his decision making off pick and roll, meaning when he comes off a pick and roll and they send two to him, because he's usually a small point guard, it could be hard for him to get the ball to the roller, but he did actually a very good job of getting the ball to the roller many times without turning the ball over. So that's one of the few things that I really look towards when it comes to Steph's game, is his ability to draw two, but then him also getting rid of the ball from drawing that kind of advantage. And then, I just thought he had a lot of great tough shot making down in the paint. Like he took 30 shots this game. Like you can tell he was excited to be back. Like there were times where he actually got too cute with the ball. Like he was trying to mix people on the ball, and he did an incredible job. I mean, he sauced Rudy Gobert on a crazy hezzy and got to the rim and flipped it up over the defense and got it off the glass. There was one play where he was isoing Julius Randle on the right wing, and he was able to get past him just enough for him to be able to shoot an off-balance floater, and he made it. Like those type of shots, they're considered bad shots, but in Steph's prime, he was able to make a lot of those shots look easy. And yesterday looked like a vintage Steph type of performance. Like he, because of Minnesota's coverages, he had to take more in between shots, and he was making them at a high clip. And with the way that he was playing yesterday, one thing was made clear. If you're able to preserve him just long enough for the games that matter, meaning the playoffs or like the play-in tournament, games where they essentially matter, which are games that Steph, at this stage in his career, they're the only ones that he really gets up for, he can lead you to a victory as the first option, which is incredible because he's about to be 38, and he's playing like if he's healthy, and he's not dealing with any kind of injuries, he is essentially playing at minimum at an all NBA second team level as a 38-year-old regular size point guard. So that's incredible. What Steph did yesterday on the offensive end, it's vintage Steph. Like that's Steph at his prime. So if we can get that Steph this season at the age that he's about to be, what more can you really say about his greatness? But as much as he did offensively, I thought there were some moments where he did get a little rushed, a little sped up. So some of the turnovers that he committed, I just didn't like. Like there were a few where he would get the rebound and he would dribble down the floor, and he was kind of like going fast and dribbling into crowds. And because of that, you allow people to kind of just like run you down from the blind side and back tap and poke the ball away from you. So because of that, he committed a lot of turnovers that I didn't really like. And, I just thought it was because Minnesota just has a ton of length and athleticism on him. Like Jaden McDaniels, a great defender. They had that Shannon Jr. guy. They also have Jaden Clark. Some of these guys are like high motor athletes that kind of can rush stuff into like bad decisions at times. Because, last year in the playoffs, I didn't think Steph handled the ball really well in that Houston series. And, Houston last year, and even still this year, has a ton of athletes and a ton of length that can really bother a player like Steph. So because of that, sometimes Steph, he can go at a pace faster than he would normally like, just because he doesn't really want to deal with that kind of length. And then on top of that, I just thought defensively he could have done a little better. Now, obviously, he's handling a majority of the offense, so for him to put in more effort on the defensive end, you're pretty much asking for him to do a lot more than he should, because, he's the guy that you should protect, because he's giving you everything that you would want on the offensive end. And if he's doing his job on the offensive end, you kind of have to help him on the defensive end. But a lot of the plays that happened with stuff on the defensive end yesterday was just kind of all on him. Like, they put him on Jaden McDaniels, and they do this a lot because they obviously don't want Steph to guard the best players and, be the main defender in most of the opposing team's actions. So you kind of put him on a defender that's kind of like, on an offensive player that's away from the action. And usually that's a guy like Jaden McDaniels. But McDaniels, he has evolved into a more polished offensive player. Like, he's a great athlete. He can get downhill. He can shoot over the top. He has great footwork, and he was giving it to Steph yesterday. And on top of that, Dante DiVincenzo, there were times where Steph was matched up with him, and Dante made him play. He made Steph pay, because there were times where he was playing pick and roll with Rudy Gobert, and Steph just couldn't get around a ball screen, or he was kind of like late to chase Dante around a screen, and because of that, like, Dante got a lot of clean looks. Like, he made a lot of big shots down the stretch because Steph was guarding him, and Steph just wasn't doing a good job. Like, he was just giving him too many clean looks. So it was a little bit of an undulating game from Steph. Like, he did well on the offensive end. Like, he did more than what the Warriors would ask for. But on the defensive end, I just thought he made some timely mistakes that led to a lot of key buckets for Minnesota. And to stay on the topic of all the positives, I thought the offense as a whole was not really that bad. I mean, the story of the game is pretty much the 3-point shooting. So we didn't shoot the three ball well. But when you look at the quality of the the quality of the looks of how we shot the 3 ball, I don't think it was really that bad. Like, we got a lot of clean opportunities to make shots, and we lost the game by 7. So if any of those guys would have hit 1, 2, or maybe 3 shots, it would have been a different type of game. But at the same time, when you look at the score, we lost the game by 7, but we gave up 127 points to Minnesota, and we scored 120. That's enough to win a ball game, but 127 is not going to cut it, especially against a team that's missing their main scorer. That's the thing, in which we'll talk about. We'll touch on that later in a minute. But yeah, I mean, the 3 ball, we were just getting clean looks. Like, we got a lot of, QP pick and pop threes, because QP, he was doing a good job of keeping Rudy Gobert honest, because Rudy Gobert, he doesn't want to get out of the paint. Like, that's the main thing with our offense. It's like, the biggest thing was like, how are we going to draw Rudy Gobert out the paint? And QP was one of those guys that was going to be the answer, because he's going to force Rudy Gobert to have to not just sit in the paint. And QP got a lot of clean looks, to which he was just missing. Like, I mean, I don't know what else to say besides you got to make open shots. It's the same thing with Al Horford. Like, Horford, he's having a bad shooting season, but it's not like he's missing a lot of tough looks. He's been getting the same looks that he's been getting throughout his career. It's just he's got to knock him down. So Steph is doing his job, and, Pat's even doing his job by drawing multiple defenders to get open looks for QP, but QP's just got to knock him down. And, QP, for me, he's having a down year in terms of statistics, in terms of his shooting, but when you watch the film, I feel like there's something wrong with his release. Like, it feels like he's pausing a little more. Certain games, it looks like his jump shot is more fluid. Other games, it looks like there's a bit of a hitch, kind of. But yeah, I mean, to just pretty much summarize it all, QP just has to make his shots. I also thought we got a lot of clean looks in transition as well, because we usually don't play in transition. Like, we're actually one of the worst teams in the league when it comes to transition offense, which is odd because we're like, top 10 in defensive playmaking, and we're like top 5 in terms of defense overall. So you would think that we would have a lot of opportunities to like take advantage of our offense in transition, but instead we never really push the ball or play as fast as we should. And I thought yesterday was one of the few moments where we actually were able to get out in transition and get a lot of clean 3-point looks. But again, we just couldn't knock them down. And then on top of that, the screen setting, in my opinion, was an underrated thing yesterday, because again, the whole objective of the offense is to draw Rudy Gobert out the paint. We couldn't do that last year without Steph. But now that Steph is here, it's going to force Rudy Gobert to be honest. And in order to do that, you got to be able to set clean screens. You got to be able to just wipe out the initial defender and force the screen defender to have to make a decision. And I thought we did that. I thought we got a lot of, again, clean in-between looks. Those shots where it's like floaters and push shots, short mid-ranges. I thought we got a lot of those looks. And we also got a lot of pick-and-pop threes. And I thought we did really well with the pinning screens. So early in the game, I thought Minnesota was a little undisciplined with their defense. And because they were pretty much kind of not guarding Steph at times, we were able to just pin in and be able to just draw a lot of clean looks for Steph, a lot of clean looks for Buddy. And, the screen setting is something that is not always going to get the same type of credit, but it's very, very crucial in terms of drawing clean looks. Another positive, Melly, he closed the game for the Warriors, and he did a good job getting downhill. Like, he's very capable of being that secondary ball handler, and there were times where he was able to pretty much handle the ball just good enough to be able to turn the corner and get downhill, get to the foul line. He actually made some really, really tough shots in the paint. Like, there was this one shot where he drove left and he decelled and shot like a one-legged shot over the top, made it, and it was a tougher shot than what it should have been. But it just goes to show that Melly is one of those other guys on this team that can get to the rim in other ways that not too many other guards in this team can do. Like, the other guys really only like Pat Spencer, obviously Steph, and after that it's Melly. Like, Melly's the guy who's going to get downhill and be able to put pressure at the rim. And pretty much because the story is that we weren't able to make shots, this is where you really start to understand why the Warriors aren't a great offense. Because when you rely primarily on jump shooting, you start to really pretty much live and die by the three. Like, you have a very varied offense. Like, your offense will never be consistent because at the end of the day, 3 points is 3 points, but what's more efficient, or what's likely, or not, what am I saying? It's pretty much a guarantee that a layup is, or most 2-point shots are more efficient unless it's a long mid-range. Most 2-point shots are going to be more efficient than a 3-point shot. And if you have nobody that can really get to the rim and put pressure on the defense, and you have to rely on 3-point shooting, there's going to be days where you look like a great offense. Like against Chicago, you were able to make, I don't remember the exact percentage, it was probably around like 40-50%. When you're able to make 40 and 50% of your threes, you look like a great offense. And on nights where, last night, where I'm pretty sure they didn't even make more than 10 threes, you kind of just look like a mediocre offense that's just backpacking the production of an all-time great. So this is where, like, if you notice, great offenses, they do have shooters, but what they also do have are guys that can relentlessly attack the rim and get efficient 2-point shots. And that is a player that I've been wanting for the Warriors ever since 2024, because I've been noticing that trend. And we did address that problem by getting one player, which is Jimmy Butler. And I guess this is a clean transition to the negatives. So pretty much, let's focus on Jimmy Butler for a second. I thought Jimmy Butler last night was not great. Okay, like, here's the thing. A lot of players have been trying to praise Jimmy for what he's been able to do for our team, to which, yes, he's certainly going to get credit. Like, he has done a great job of pretty much turning our team into the correct direction, pretty much, because prior to him, we had no direction at all. Like, we had Steph, but then there was just this huge, like, enormous gap between Steph and everyone else on the team that we just didn't really know where we wanted to go. And then Jimmy kind of just bridged that gap when he came in. And, he's doing his job production-wise. Like, he's filling up the box score with stats that you would normally see from a second option. Like, he's somebody that can, like, quietly walk to, like, 20 points and then also give you, like, 7 rebounds and 6 assists. Right, he's at this stage in his career, like during the regular season, we already know he's kind of just coasting. Like, that whole playoff Jimmy nickname, that's what he really lives for. Like, he's not going to admit it, but he pretty much he's like Steph. He only plays games that are meaningful in his career now, and that happens to be the playoffs. But yesterday, I just thought he started the game so slow. Like, he started the game just not with the correct energy defensively. Like, he was late to close out. I thought he was really sluggish in terms of like rotations and, being able to stay in front of people. I thought he just gave up a lot of clean drives in the beginning of the game. Like, he fouled Jaden McDaniels on a drive to the basket early to the game. And I just thought, like, you could have done so much better. I thought, like, the timing of his rotation was so slow that I thought he just could have done way better. And I was just watching him, like, if you're going to play like this, why didn't you just sit out? Like, why didn't you just sit out with Draymond and Al Horford if you're going to just play very slow and very sluggish? Because you're actually hurting the team. Like, although you're the second best player on this team, if you're not going to play like it, you're going to hurt this team. So that happened for like a quarter and a half. And then right after that, Jimmy actually was very aggressive. He started to attack the rim more. He was able to get a couple foul calls. He was pretty much doing what he was supposed to do. And then when it got to the fourth quarter where the game was pretty tight, I think we were leading by like 3 points. And he just failed to pretty much control the non-Steph minutes. And this has been a trend for pretty much the entire season. Like, when Steph goes to the bench, Jimmy is just not good enough to lead the non-Steph minutes. Part of that is because he's not as aggressive getting his shot as he is supposed to be. Like, he's, again, in the regular season, he likes to coast. He very much wants to play passive. He wants to pretty much be that guy to like consistently draw advantages and just kick the ball out and hope that his teammates complete the play. However, the issue is there's times where he's just not aggressive enough in drawing that help. Like, he's not consistently breaking the paint to the point where there's guys that are going to collapse. Like, he does do it, but he doesn't do it enough times where he can just play the way that he wants to play. Like, there's times where he drives linearly across the paint. Like, he won't drive towards the rim. He'll drive away from the rim just to pass the ball. And that's not going to cut it, because you're not putting your teammates in the best position to finish the play, to make shots, to dunk the ball, etc. And I thought in the fourth quarter, I thought he didn't do that enough. Like, there were times where his teammates could have made shots, but he himself, he should have been able to pretty much attack matchups that he should have won. Like, he should have been able to beat Robert Dillingham, or not Robert Dillingham, what am I saying? That's not his name. He should have been able to attack Rob Dillingham on many occasions. Same thing with Dante DiVincenzo. Like, these are matchups that he should win, and he's not winning them. Like, how's that possible? You're supposed to be this powerhouse that's supposed to beat these matchups, and you're getting paid $60 million, and you're not able to do it. Like, how's that possible? So, I thought he should have done way more. I thought he should have been more aggressive, more assertive, and demanded the ball, in many different possessions, but instead he just didn't do it. But the biggest thing is him once again losing the Julius Randle matchup. And he lost that matchup badly to Julius Randle last season. Last season, he looked like pretty much the fifth best player in the court. Like, it was Ant, Julius Randle, Jonathan Kuminga. Yes, Kuminga played better than Jimmy Butler in that Minnesota series. And then it was like Naz Reid, and then it was him. He was the fifth best player on the floor, and he's getting paid more than all of those guys. And once again, in a matchup where there's no Anthony Edwards, to which I'll touch on this right now, Ant not being available actually made the Minnesota Timberwolves more dangerous for us, because we're more vulnerable to powerhouse matchups like this. Because, the story of the game was that defensively, the Warriors got overpowered physically. And pretty much if you watch the Warriors, in their past playoff series, like for an example against the Lakers, when they had AD, the Lakers were a nightmare matchup for the Warriors. But however, since the Lakers acquired Luka Doncic, the Warriors aren't a better team right now than the Lakers, but the Lakers are more beatable with Luka for the Warriors than they were with AD, because LeBron and AD would just abuse the Warriors physically. Luka, he presents a different type of threat. He's more of a perimeter threat, to which the Warriors, they can defend that better because they can use what they can, or they can pretty much only use the only thing that they have, which is their speed, because they have no size. And when you don't have no size, you pretty much succumb to these type of matchups where you just get overpowered physically. Jimmy fell victim to that Julius Randle matchup, and everybody else who was guarding all their other bigger players, because we were running small lineups, they also got overpowered. And this is where I want to talk about how the lineups we were playing, they were just not viable. We were just playing a lot of 4-guard lineups. We didn't play Guy Santos enough. This was probably a game where we should have played Jonathan Kuminga, because the way we were getting overpowered, it was like, we need to do something. Like these little guards that we were playing, they're just not doing enough. Like, it's just not a great idea to play a small ball lineup against this type of team. We had DeAnthony Melton guarding Jaden McDaniels. We had even our guards guarding Naz Reid. We had mismatches on Julius Randle, and they were just abusing that matchup. Like, it was just too easy for them. They were getting on the offensive glass. They were drawing free throws. Like, it was pretty much a similar story to what happened last season. And this was a game where Draymond was missed because, down the stretch of the game, this is where, or actually before we get to that segment, before we get to things that happen down the stretch of the games, I want to speak more about the small ball lineup that we played. So pretty much everyone's going to give, Steve Kerr a lot of the blame because he was the one that was playing the small ball lineups. And, I do understand that part of the issue is Steve Kerr. Like, yes, Steve Kerr is 100% obsessed with small ball, but at the same time, you kind of look at the roster and it's like we don't really have a whole lot of forwards. Like, we don't have a lot of guys, or a lot of big bodies in general that we can just fill out at the wing position. So clearly, that's an issue that we need to solve by making trades. But at the same time, I also want to point out that, small ball itself against this Minnesota team isn't really the wrong answer, because if you actually remembered, there were times where OKC last season in the playoffs played a small ball lineup against this Minnesota team, and it worked. Like, they played Kenrich Williams at the 5, and it actually played Rudy Gobert off the floor, I think. And the difference between their small ball lineup, OKC's small ball lineup, and our small ball lineup, besides the obvious, like, they're bigger and they're a better defense and, they have better players, etc. They're more physical. That's the thing. They're small dudes that get up in your chest and, they're quick. They stab down. They stunt. They pretty much keep the offense guessing. They wouldn't really just allow single coverage. Like, they make things tough on you. That's the thing. They're physical. Whereas us, we don't really have that type of personnel. So because of that, they can just steamroll us. So now going deep into what happened later into the game, it was clear that Julius Randle's cooking. And, Chris Finch, he ran a lot of, two-man game between him and Rudy Gobert. And that's where Jimmy and QP really got cooked, because QP got dunked on like how many times? Like 3 times? Like, he got dunked on by Rudy Gobert like 3 different times, which is crazy. But I thought down the stretch of the game, we should have done better to defend that 2-man game. I thought Jimmy should have guarded Rudy, and I thought QP should have guarded Julius Randle and just allowed Julius Randle to try to attack QP, because QP has been a great defensive center to start the season. Like, he's top 3 in defensive rating. Now, again, defensive rating is only a team stat. It's not a player stat. But if you watch the film, QP has been doing such a good job defensively. And, if they were to run the 2-man game, you can just easily switch that. That's the thing. Instead of playing traditional coverage where QP, he had to, pay attention to Julius Randle coming downhill, but then you also have Rudy Gobert rolling to the basket hard. And he was able to just get a lot of clean lobs. So I thought we should have, had Jimmy Butler on Rudy Gobert and just switched the action. But then another thing is just I thought we did a horrible job guarding Julius Randle on his post-ups. Like, why did we just keep playing single coverage? There was a possession in the second half where Melly he was switched on to Julius Randle and he fronted the post. And pretty much there was somebody else on the backside. I think it was Jimmy getting ready to try to jump that passing lane if the pass was to be thrown over the top. And that's the same coverage that the Lakers played against Minnesota in the playoffs last year. And it worked. Like, the Lakers, they're not a good defense, but they know how to guard post-ups because they understand that that's a vulnerability in their defense. So because of that, they're great at fronting the post. I don't understand why we didn't do that. Like, why didn't we deny Julius Randle the ball in his spots? Like, we never changed our game plan once. We just allowed him to play single coverage and just allowed him to score over and over and over and over again and just making no adjustments. I just didn't understand that. So, yeah, man, that the whole defensive game plan for Julius Randle down the stretch, I just didn't like it whatsoever. And then, to just cap it off, like, the closeout defense was just horrendous because we don't have a whole lot of big bodies. There's not a lot of big guys who can just close out to the perimeter and take away a shot, but also not give up a clean drive. And that's the issue that we had last season. Like, our defense was just in a constant blender because we didn't have enough size to be able to just take away a shot, but also take away a clean drive to the basket. And, as the game went on, we were just in rotation the entire time. We just couldn't stay out of it. And, transition defense was also an issue because we couldn't make shots. And then, overall, I felt like we could have done, we left a lot on the plate offensively. We should have done more. Defensively, it was just something that we couldn't control. Like, this was one of those games where there was not really anyone else to put the blame on. Like, we didn't lose because of like 1, 2, or 3 different players. We just lost because we didn't have the proper personnel to match up against a team like Minnesota. And, the more we match up against Minnesota, it just goes to show you that our flaws are real and that we need to make a trade. We need to shake up this roster immediately if we want any chance of contending. Because, Steph alone, his magic is not going to help us get a ring this year. Like, we have to address things that need to be addressed. That's just the narrative. So, yeah, thank you so much for tuning into my first ever podcast. I'll be doing more just like these. I'm not just only going to cover Warrior games. I'm also going to be covering big games as well. Games that are not necessarily they're not necessarily only Warrior games, like nationally televised games that people are going to tune into. I'm going to be making more podcasts just like these, but I'm also going to be making my regular videos as well. So, yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one.